fix my camera. Hey everybody. Wow. Hey everybody, it's Stephanie from Chasma Books. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. You can find me everywhere under that handle. I've been blogging for 6 years and I finally decided to come join YouTube. If you watched my previous video, it should have been a writing one. I'm assuming I'm putting these up in the order that I'm filming them, so who knows though. Anyway, so today I decided to bring you a bookish video where I am going to recommend some of my favorite series or books, because some of these I kind of haven't finished the series of, but I've read what I've liked. I've liked what I've read. I do read what I like, but you know. Anyway, so today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite books. Of course, there have been others that I've really enjoyed that won't be in this video because I don't own them all, unfortunately. So, you know. Anyway, as I was saying, so we're just gonna go right into it. First up is The Winter's Curse by Mary Rakowski. This is about a girl who lives, her father is, I think he's the leader of the country, or he's like high tier. I don't remember specifically, but he's like a general or something, and he's basically like, Kestrel, you need to get married or you need to join the army, but you gotta do one of them. And she doesn't want to do either one of them, but she's incredibly smart. She's very strategic. And so one day she decides that she is going to go to a slave auction, and she ends up buying a slave there. His name is Aaron, and eventually they kind of grow to, because she treats him pretty well, and they grow together. They become friends, and so she thinks. No, they do become friends, and yeah, things do not go as planned though, because Aaron's country was taken captive by hers. So you can imagine. There's 3 books in the series. They're actually right here: The Winter's Crime and The Winter's Kiss. If you haven't read that, give it a try. You might like it. Right. There's also The Runes of Garlin. Sorry, a text came in on my phone. There's The Winter's, no, I just finished The Winter's Curse. Okay. I have Ranger's Apprentice, Book 1, The Runes of Garlin. This is written by John Flanagan. I've been reading this series for the last 10 years. This is not my fault. I had younger brothers. I still do have younger brothers, but I lived with them at the time and they did not always treat this book well, but I kind of love that it's foreign. I don't know. Anyway, it's a childhood book. I love it. I've read this book like 7 or 10 times. I lost count after 7, to be honest. But I've read it a lot. It's really great. I've read it as an adult as well. It stood the test of time for me. I've read other books in the series. It is a longer series, but again, I have been reading it for 10 years, so I've kind of been reading it as they come out, so I have that benefit. But if you know a young reader or you're interested in it yourself, you definitely should check it out. It's about a boy who is an orphan after a war, and one of the King's Rangers, who's an elite group that answers only to the king. They're also kind of somewhat not really mystical, but assumed to be mystical by the common folk. And, you know, people really stay away from them. They're like the Secret Service, if you will, kind of. Like, I don't know. You could compare them to, I think they're actually based off of, like, Rangers. Army Rangers, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway, they're just an elite task force, and they help keep the kingdom in line for the king. And so yeah, he doesn't get chosen. The main character, Will, wants to become a knight, and he's just too small. He's not the right build to become a knight, is what everybody tells him. And he doesn't get chosen for any of the tasks at this like ceremony that they have when they turn 15, where the, you know, like talent people talent people, oh my gosh, you know, they have people like, they have horse masters, a scribe, I think, or something like that, a chef. They have all these specialists, and the leaders of these specialties go and they select one of the orphans to help train. And Will doesn't get chosen for any of them, except that the Ranger Halt chooses him one day to be his apprentice. And it's just about him being the apprentice, and I love all the characters in the story. The story's also written really well, and it's very engaging. I've really enjoyed it. The author is actually now writing a sequel series, which you don't have to have read the first one. I think you would enjoy the second one more if you have read the first one, but you don't have to, like, story-wise. They are separate stories. But he's actually writing a sequel series right now with a female ranger in it, so that's pretty cool. And I have been enjoying that one as well. Not as much as this one, but I really love the characters, and I've had more time with these characters, so. But yeah, if you haven't read this one, or you know a young reader who might be interested, definitely give this to them. It's amazing. And what a great dive into high fantasy for a young reader. Like, I can't think of a better one. Okay, this is one you've probably seen all over the place, and that is Throne of Glass. I don't even know if I should bother trying to summarize this for you. It's Throne of Glass, guys. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how to summarize this book anymore. I really, I haven't finished this series, honestly. I own the 5th book. I haven't read it. I've kind of heard some of the things of where the story, like the series, went afterwards, and I haven't been very excited about what I've heard, so I've kind of given up on the series. But this first book, I really enjoyed the first one, and actually I've read 1 through 4, and I really did enjoy 1 through 4. 4 did feel a little bit long to me, and 3 did too. They had their longer parts that I was just like, okay, you know, we could use some editing here, just a little bit too much. Like, it's just a little bit too long. But, I mean, they weren't bad. I really did enjoy those 2 books a lot. I have to say, though, I think my favorite in the series have been books 1 and 2, which, you know, they just are. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't at least read, like, the first book, you could definitely try it. I really enjoyed the first book. I thought it was great. It's definitely an older YA, so I wouldn't really recommend giving it to like a 13-year-old by any means. Maybe a very mature 14-year-old. I would say this is probably like a 16 and up type of series. Personally, that would be my recommendation, but you know your kids, so whatever. But that's my personal recommendation. I think this is very much older YA. So next I have, if you've been following me on Twitter or Instagram for any amount of time, then you know, or if you've been following my blog, then you know I love these books. I love Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I've read the entire series. I've seen the movies a million times, but like, who hasn't seen the movies a million times? The Hobbit and I actually have a very interesting relationship. I did not really like The Hobbit the first time I read it. I actually read The Hobbit before I read the other ones. I read it when I was younger, and I did not enjoy it as much. I enjoyed this one more. And this one, Fellowship of the Ring, definitely is my favorite one out of the entire series. Still, even after reading it all. But The Hobbit I have grown to love more as time has gone on, to be honest. I know a lot of people feel like it's the opposite for them, like they really love The Hobbit and this one not so much. To me though, personally, I do like The Hobbit and I do love The Hobbit now. But at first I didn't. It's taken me a while to love it. So if you're like that, it's okay. And if you didn't really like The Hobbit, it's okay too. Give it a shot. And if you didn't really like this, give The Hobbit a shot, because they are in the same world, but they are kind of different. This one is more, you can tell it's written more like for like a kid's story. You could read this out loud to your kid, really. I mean, you could read them both, but this one is really, you can tell it's written for a younger audience. Anyway, this could be like a bedtime story almost in some parts through a lot of it. It's faster paced than The Fellowship. But The Fellowship has a lot of details in the world that I really enjoyed. So we have Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. Okay. I DNF'd this book. I had the hardcover. I read, I think, like 50 pages of it. I hated every single character in it, and I gave it away to my library. And then one day, one of my good friends on Twitter and one of her friends were like, oh my gosh, this series is so good. And I'm like, guys, it has such a beautiful cover, and I keep seeing it in the bookstore and the cover's beautiful, but I tried and I hated all the characters. And I'm like, no, you gotta try it again. So I did. I got the audiobook. At the time I had an Audible subscription. I had a free credit, so I went and I got the audiobook. And at first I was just like, these characters are just terrible people. Like, they just are. Like, every single one of them. Just, I mean, some are worse than others, but I'm just like, there's one character I was like, you're disgusting. And a lot of the others, I'm just like, you pretend to be good, but you're not. And they're just all just not very good people. And it's kind of interesting because depending on what side of the, you know, if you want to be on the good guy side or the bad guy side, you can choose, because none of them are really great people at all, like by any means. At least in the first book and in the first few books. That changes a little bit more as the series goes on. I mean, you have a defined good guys and bad guys side, definitely, but it's about invading kingdoms. You have one kingdom invading another, and most kingdoms have their faults. They've done bad things, and it's I think it's like pegged as like Game of Thrones for young adult readers, or for people who like young adult books, either way. Which I've never read Game of Thrones, but from what I understand of it, I feel like that's probably a pretty good comparison. Yeah, here it is on the back of the cover. According to Tor.com, this is perfect for fans of Game of Thrones. I've really enjoyed this series though. After that initial experience with it, I actually wrote a whole DNF review, and I was like, I hated these characters, I hated this guy, this why. And then I listened to the audiobook, and it kind of got me over that hump enough that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, you know? So yeah, I did really like this series, at least what I've read of it. I've read books 1 through 4. I haven't read books in 5 and 6 yet. I know, I'm bad. I need to. But yeah, and I actually listened to the audiobook, so eventually I want to reread the series, like, because you miss stuff, especially with like fantasy. I know I miss stuff in the audiobook, so eventually I want to reread it. But yeah, if you haven't given this series a try, you definitely should. It's excellent. So yeah, that's it for that book. And we have the naming, which I cannot summarize for you, and I should have read beforehand like I thought and forgot to do. 1 second. The naming. This is the Books of Pollen is the name of this, or yeah, the Books of Pollen is the name of the series. I have really, really loved this series for a long time. I read it when I was younger. This is actually the very same book that I read probably 10 years ago now. Yeah, probably about 10 years ago, I think. It was my aunt's book. I recently... Ew, there's a squished bug. Okay. It's a 10-year-old book. It's fine. Anyway, I first read it. It was my aunt's book. I recently visited her and she actually gave me the entire series. She didn't want it anymore. I read this first book and I was like, oh my gosh. I was actually kind of scandalized at first because I think I was like 12 or something when I read it. I knew what a period was. I had one, but like in it, the character experiences it for like the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're talking about this because I'd never read a book that included that in it before. So I was kind of scandalized. So that's a little funny tidbit for you. But this is a high fantasy. This is about Myred, and she is a slave after her family was destroyed during a war. Yes, I just read that off the back of the cover. And finds out that she has power. She has this unknown power, and she is found by Cadvin, who is a bard, and she's taken to the school of Pelennor to learn how to use her gifts. And nothing goes as planned. They have to take a journey, and it's dangerous. And according to the back, she and her new teacher must survive a journey through a time and place where the dark forces they battle stem from the deepest recesses of otherworldly terror. So yeah, it's an epic fantasy. I really, really, really love this series. I want to reread it. I've actually been meaning to buy it recently, and I was very excited. Especially, it's nice to have the actual books that I read 10 years ago. Like, these are the books, the same exact editions and paper that I turned and read furiously. Anyway, I've been filming for an hour now, so I'm gonna go. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite series is, and if you've read any of these books. Did you enjoy them? Did you hate them? Let me know. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, especially about Fallen Kingdoms, because I really struggled with that one at first. So let me know if you read Fallen Kingdoms. Did you hate it at first? Did you have to give it a second try? Because I did. I actually never took it down my DNF review for the series on my blog. So fun fact, you can probably go searching for Fallen Kingdoms and find it really easy on there. And you can kind of see, I actually linked to it in my review after I read the entire book. So interesting, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go. See you guys next time. Bye.